I'd like to walk you through the homework problems from Chapter C that I'm assigning, and I'll do this from my beautiful fern garden that I'm sitting in. You have some worksheet problems to do from Chapter C. This is, again, at the end of the chapter in your textbook. And then I created a couple of additional problems to have you do things that weren't in the worksheets. So you'll need to do both things. I've assigned worksheet exercise 1. You can do this either on staff paper or you can do it on blank paper and just save your staff paper for the problems that require staff paper. For number 1, you have 10 keys, which are all major keys, and you need to give the relative minor key for the key. This next line, I'm sure, is supposed to be number 2, and it's the opposite issue. So here you're given minor keys and you need to provide the relative major key. I'd also like you to do exercise 2. Pay attention to the directions. You should understand the 14 keys in letter A as being all major keys. So identify these as if they are major keys. And then these for letter B, identify the keys thinking of these as minor key signatures. Before I go on to look at exercise 3 with you, let me just remind you that in tenor clef, the sharps look a little bit different. Like here's some sharps in tenor clef. Instead of starting on a relatively high F sharp and then going down to the C sharp, in tenor clef and only in tenor clef, we start on the lower F sharp and then we go up to C sharp, down to G sharp, up to D sharp, etc. Remember that because there are a couple of tenor clef examples in exercise 3. Here's exercise 3. It may not be completely obvious that the first 2 lines are capital M's and then the second 2 lines are lowercase m's, but that's the way it is. The first 2 lines you should write major key signatures, and then the next 2 lines write minor key signatures. Be aware that I'm going to be very picky about this. It's important that you write not only the right number of sharps and flats, but you write them in the correct order, and also that you write them in the correct octave. For D major, if you try to write the key signature for D major, starting on the lower F sharp and then going up to the higher C sharp as if you're in tenor clef, you'll at best get only partial credit. For exercise 4, you need to write some scales and write these scales without using key signatures. So write in each accidental, and please be careful to put the accidental exactly centered on the line or space to the left of the note. I don't want any flying accidentals that are not aligned with the note. When you go to do these minor scales, the melodic minor says to write both the ascending and the descending scale. Don't mess around with that. Just write the ascending melodic minor scale. Now for exercise 6, I've only assigned 3 of the melodies. So you should do B, you should do C, and you should do H. The point of all of these is to think about how key and scale play into actual melodies so that it's less abstract. And this goes back to one of my lectures on Chapter C, where I point out the importance of tonic and dominant in tonal melodies. Even when there's no key signature in a melody, or perhaps if the music has modulated and we're now no longer in the key that reflects the key signature, if we just hear how tonic and dominant and sometimes tonic mediant and dominant are used, then we'll understand what key the melody is in. It will probably help you to play these examples. Let me try singing this one for you. I may not start exactly on a D, so I hope you forgive me if you have perfect pitch. Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum. Da, 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 da. Bum, 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 bum. Okay, I didn't take the repeat, but that's more or less what it sounds like. Okay, so figure out what key it's in. Think about what are the notes on the downbeats, What are the notes that seem to be emphasized because they are longer notes than other notes? Do you hear something that seems to be the tonic triad? Also think about when a phrase comes to rest, which phrases sound more final, as if they're ending on the tonic note. Okay, so in the first measure, you're going to write a single note, which is the tonic note. In the next measure, you're going to write the tonic triad. If the tonic triad includes any of the notes that would be not natural notes that use these accidentals in the key signature, be sure to include the accidentals. For the range, look for the lowest and the highest notes in the melody. Remember that typically a melody will either go from sol to sol, scale degree 5 to scale degree 5, or from do to do. And sometimes the range may be exceeded on one end or the other or both by a single note. So if the lowest note of the melody is do, we might go a little bit below that to T and then back to do. Or if the highest note is sol, we might go a little bit higher than that to lay or la and then back to sol. For the mode or key, you don't need to write it on the staff. Just write down what key you think it's in. C major, for example. And then for the scale, write the scale. For minor melodies, if you find any minor key melodies, try to tell if the example seems to be predominantly using the natural minor, the harmonic minor, or the melodic minor. Now, typically, these are all mixed up in music. As I said in one of the lectures, we don't normally have a piece that we think of as being in the key of C natural minor or in the key of C melodic minor. We just think of the melody as being, or the piece as being in the key of C minor. However, since we're talking about the 3 different forms of minor keys, I think it would be good if you would think about which form of minor predominates and then write that scale. If it seems to use the melodic minor, again, don't bother writing the ascending and descending form. Just write an ascending melodic minor scale. Okay, in addition, I gave you a couple problems for you to work out. So the first example in the worksheet has to do with relative keys. This example has to do with parallel keys. I've given you the key signature either for a minor or for a major key here, either above the staff or below the staff. Write the name of the parallel key, right? That won't be very hard. You just have to write the same letter name and then write the opposite, major for minor and vice versa. But then think about what the key signature for that key is. The last exercise for you to do is a transposition exercise. I have given you a little fragment of a melody. This is actually from a piano sonata by Maria Martinez. It was in your book as an example somewhere, and I just copied it. This example is in A major. The first thing I'd like you to do is to write above the staff what the scale degrees are for each of the notes. Then down below, don't use a key signature, but instead transpose the melody to the key of F, thinking about the key signature of F major. So you don't have to write lots and lots of ledger lines. I would suggest that you start on the low C, so start on C2, 2 ledger lines below bass clef. The purpose of this is to have you think about scale degrees. I would like you not to think about transposing each note down by a certain interval, but rather think about what is this scale degree in A major, and then write the same scale degree in F major for the transposition, and do the whole melody that way. That's it. Good luck with your homework. I'll see you in class.